Welcome to String Theory with Anthony Douglas. I am your host, Anthony Douglas. At any rate, today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about unions. Now, unions, before I was working professionally, I was told from my dad that was doing this, from other gentlemen that were doing this, and people that were doing this, that the union played quite a part in what it was that they were doing. In other words, you didn't work a bar unless you belong to the union. And if I have it right, the bar or establishment that you had to play also was in with the union. Now, I don't know how all this worked exactly. I remember when I first came into the scene, people were asking me to join the union. They were saying, oh man, you've got to work, you've got to be in the union so you can keep the prices up there. And yeah, then there were people from the other side of the fence that were saying, no, don't do that. Don't become part of the union. You can't go out and work other places. All of the above. If you just limit yourself to the union, then you have to have, these union jobs, and it has to be $75. You can't work for any less, and you'll get less work. But I listened to the people that were not in the union. I listened to them because they made a great point. You want to keep working, you want to keep it going, but on the other hand, on the other side of the coin, the people that wanted me to join the union, which was my booking agent and different other people, also had a great point. And looking at it back today, oh man, I mean, if we all had been able, I'm going to say this, been able to have a strong union, things would have been different. Things would have, we would have been able to, I think, have a lot more leverage, you might say. We would have been able to have a lot more say in what goes on. In other words, pay scale, we wouldn't be having to go into the bars and go, okay, look, and just fight for that amount of money, fight for everything. We would know what we were getting paid. We would know. But nowadays, it really does seem like when you go into any establishment, there's a saying in the music business: what you go in for is what you're going to stay at. So these are things we need to discuss, and there will probably be more. There could be more than one video about this, actually, but yeah, I really want to, just start talking about this, because by the time karaoke came in, which was around 1990 somewhere, in my hometown, we did not have a strong union at all at that point. And they were able to weasel their way in with stuff like that. In other words, had we had a strong union, things like karaoke would have never happened. At least not the way perhaps they did. It just went in and begun taking over. If nothing else, there would have been some resistance there. Even if we would have, lost to it, there certainly would have been, a fair amount of resistance, telling people, hey, this is a union job, this is this. Things may have wound up in, who knows, could have even wound up in courtrooms, I don't know. But there would have been, I guarantee you, if you started an airplane company, a non-union airplane company right next to Boeing, there'd be a say in something about that. And you know, you have to understand, we had a music industry, you know, something that was in industry, something that we were able to bank on, something that we were able to come back to work every day. And, you know, I mean, you have other people that may say something like, well, you know, that's progress. Out with the old and with your new, you know, you don't deserve a job anymore because now we have this new thing, you know. And so there's a lot of, you know, debate on all of that goes on. But yeah, unions, upsides to unions, downsides to unions. I was just talking to my buddy yesterday about a union thing that was going on in his state that was, you know, helping out the musicians. But they helped out the musicians all right. They would come to your gig, and the president of the union would, according to him, would sit there and have a drink on you, happy baby. They would just lap it up at the bar. Oh man, you know, the very thing that's, you know, out there trying to protect you is also coming to your gigs. You know, I'm union, so I can just, you know, I'm the head of this things, and everybody else has to be under me. So I'm gonna go in now and just order whatever I want, and they're gonna pay for it. The bands are gonna pay for it. I never heard that anything like that till yesterday, and I just thought it was funny. I mean, it isn't funny that it had to happen to bands like that, but it is a little hilarious, I think. All right, and everything. So there was other things that were going on. That reasons why, you know, they wanted me to become part of the union. And yeah, I had some strong resistance on both sides, and I didn't really understand what the union was. I was a little dissatisfied, to tell you the truth, what I felt the union was bringing to us. But according to my dad, he was kind of, well, when I was your age, you had to become, you know, union member, and you couldn't work in a bar, and I was making as much back then as you are now, you know, and stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting. I don't know a lot about unions. I know that there were upsides, there was not such upsides. Yeah, if you know a lot more about musicians' unions and exactly what it is that they do, and, you know, maybe we should belong to them, just leave a comment in the section. And if I think of anything more about unions, positive and maybe not so positive, I'll make another video. But yeah, there just is something, I think, to be said for protection. Now, one other thing though that I wanted to address was another thing that was going on at that time were non-professionals. I mean, you had men that would make these bands, you know, and then they would, you know, I may have even said this in another video, they would literally teach their wives to play the bass. And I always thought that, okay, I know it's art in everything, and I know there's self-expression in everything, but I almost think that there should be a thing maybe by the union that governs some of the quality, of, or some of these loopholes. I mean, they've got, 1099 loopholes where, it's you it's your business and everything, and you're working for yourself. Yes, happy baby, you have to fend for yourself. And then you're paying their tax. It feels like you're paying your tax. You're paying everything. You're not getting medical. You're not getting a dental plan. You're not getting fair wages. You're not getting unemployment. There's just so much you're not getting, happy baby. And then they wonder why you have to change bands when the pay gets so low, and they don't want to raise you anymore because they are not forced to by any kind of union contract or any kind of contract. They wonder why you just jump ship. Gee, I wonder why they just left. Well, why is there so many mercenaries in the music industry working with every band under the sun? Why is this? Why is that? Well, it forces you to do that. It forces you to fend for yourself, because you have to. And all right, well, I hope this helped. And I'll see you in the next video, and we'll think of some other weird things to think about and talk about the music industry. All right, take care.